There's also a difference of opinion in terms of the dates associated with the Masoretic text and the Septuagint. Can you explain that a little bit?
First, we go back to Genesis 11. And within Genesis 11, we have one of the genealogies. Basically gives us the history of the transmission of people going from the time of the flood down to Abraham. And in that genealogy, we have various readings in the text. We have different Hebrew traditions, different written traditions of the Bible, even beyond the Hebrew Bible, that give us information that would cause us to understand maybe one or another is problematic. The textual variation we have in Genesis 11 is a very complex problem. And when you study the issue, you see that there's basically two textual traditions there. The Masoretic tradition and what we call a double textual tradition of the Samaritan Pentateuch, which is an older form of the Hebrew Bible, and the LXX or Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. So these two textual traditions match up together in contrast to what we read in the Genesis 11 account in the Masoretic text. So with the Masoretic text, basically you have the period of the flood going back only a certain time period in the 3rd millennium BC, such that it's very difficult to find time for all of the archaeological periods that take place. You can't fit Nimrod in as the Akkadian leader. You can't fit the Tower of Babel in. And that's very problematic. Yeah. But there are two other textual traditions apart from the Masoretic text. And those are independent traditions, and they're found in the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Septuagint, known as the LXX, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. And in those texts, the numbers are different. And if you take those numbers as being factual, that allows the flood to be pushed back to about 3108 BC, and it gives you a lot of ability to fit in the archaeological periods. And ultimately, we can explain the rise of the wrong reading better with the reading of the Septuagint and the Samaritan Pentateuch. Now, basically what it comes down to is this. With a number of the men who are the fathers, the ones who sire children who are part of this genealogy, there's a difference in how old that man was at the time that he birthed that child who was part of that genealogy. Yeah. So, for example, if a father in the Masoretic text was 30 years old when he sired that child, in the Septuagint and the Samaritan Pentateuch, it says that he was 130 years old. So you have this same type of repeated problem in the textual tradition. Now, what's interesting is that when you come to the end of that lifespan of that certain patriarch, he lives the exact same amount of time in the Masoretic text versus the double tradition of the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Septuagint. So the question is, which tradition is correct and which is incorrect? Now, I wrote my Master of Theology thesis in the area of lower textual criticism, which essentially is the study of what did the text of the Bible in the original manuscripts say, whether in Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek. We have a number of principles that we use in the field of textual criticism. These are called canons. And the most important, and this is universally recognized as the most important canon for determining correct readings, is this: choose the reading that best accounts for the other readings. Now, what that comes down to is the correct reading is going to account for how you develop the spurious reading. So if you were a Masoretic scribe and you saw that the man was 30 years old when he sired his child, is there any reason that would make you change your text in hopes that you're improving it to alter the number to 130 years of age when he sired that child?
I can't think of any.
Right. So we can account for the reading in the Masoretic text by changing it from 130 to 30. That's very logical. It's absolutely illogical to change the text from 30 years of age to 130 years of age. And in this textual tradition, we have two independent lines of textual tradition that both bear with them the same numbering. So most likely, although the Masoretic text on the whole more often is correct than the other textual lines or textual sources with the Hebrew Bible, in this case, almost certainly the Masoretic text itself is wrong.
Yeah. Doug, after all of your years in archaeology and all that you've seen and the digs and all of your scientific work, are you more convinced in the historicity of Genesis, or are you less convinced?
I'm absolutely more convinced. And I've essentially dedicated my life to the study not only of the Scripture itself and trying to understand what was originally written by the inspired authors, but to defend that against attacks that are currently being made in the area of historicity. And then you might say, why is that so important? The reason is this: because if someone can undermine your understanding of the historical facts that are, or at least purported to be factual in the biblical text, if someone can prove to you that that has erred in some way, probably it's going to undermine your belief in the spiritual message in the Bible, and in the characters of the Bible, and in the events of the Bible that are recorded, and the encounters between people, and the miracles. All of these things are going to be eroded away if you undermine the historicity of the biblical text.